I am a 30-year-old, childless, single, late bloomer woman. So, this is my story and this is my advice for any late bloomers out there or pretty much just young people in their 20s. So, before I share my advice, I want to share a little bit about my story. I always struggled with like finding myself and like seeing myself and being confident. I was a very shy kid, very introverted. um, I was overweight. So I grew up as an overweight kid. I was introverted. So I grew up thinking I was very unattractive. I grew up thinking I was ugly. So that really stopped me from a lot of things that I wanted to try as a kid and even as an adult in my 20s. When I was in high school, I created this like huge vision about myself, even though I was very insecure and didn't really know what to do with my life. I was like, I want to be a director. I want to be a cinematographer. I want to be this big shot filmmaker. And even though my poor little soul, my poor little self, I was like struggling with insecurity, I had that big dream. And I was bold enough to apply to film schools. And unfortunately, I didn't get into the school that I wanted, which was Cal State Long Beach. I wanted to go through their film program because I believe Steven Spielberg had gone through that program or something like that. But anyway, that was my dream school. I did get put on a wait list, but I didn't want to wait, and I decided to go to UC Irvine, where I got a scholarship, and I needed the money. I couldn't say no to that, so I went to UC Irvine, and this is where it got difficult. Once I started into getting into like my film courses and like I noticed that I really didn't fit in there as well. Like I was in a different city. I was exposed to a lot of like diversity, but I still didn't fit in. And lot of it had to do is because my confidence was like super low, and I was very introverted. And like I remember one time, like I remember me shopping for my graduation dress for high school. I went to the store and like I don't know, I was talking to the owner. She said, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "I want to be a filmmaker." And then she just looked at me. She's like, "You're too quiet. You're not gonna make it." And like those words really hurt me. And it wasn't just that like stopped me from fully taking advantage of like, being at school and trying to get out there, but there was a lot of people that like told me that, you know, being in film, you have to look a certain way, you have to have a lot of money, which I don't and I didn't. So there was a lot of things against me, and I really got into this like super negative mindset that I wasn't going to make it. But I still, tried my best at school. I got a lot of great grades. I did my projects, and I think I had a really good vision in filmmaking, but unfortunately I just wasn't confident enough to like grab life by its horns and get what I wanted. And during college, I also found another passion of mine, which was anthropology. I've always been a weird, curious little kid. Like I swear, like because I was introverted, I really got into my own little world growing up, and I used to watch a lot of Discovery Kids and National Geographic, and I used to study like other cultures. I taught myself how to use chopsticks at like 10. So like I was just like very intrigued by cultures and by people and by people's differences, and I discovered anthropology. I took a course in anthropology and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the whole like analyzing cultures and like, really thinking about how different people are around the world, and then there's no one thing. They're like, as an American, I feel like you have this vision of life, but when you go outside into the world, it's so much different, and there's no one way to do a thing. You know what I mean? So I majored in anthropology, specifically cultural anthropology, and I wanted to become an anthropologist as well. But, I think the problem, okay, now fast forward to senior year. The problem was that I didn't want to go to grad school because I didn't want to get more student loans. I was like, this is all we're going to get, Leslie. We can't afford to go more into like the master's program. So for me, I felt like throughout my 20s, I kind of closed that off for me. I was like, no, you can't go back to school. We can't get more student loans. So that's why my career in anthropology kind of like never became a thing because of that. And after college, I wanted to just become a filmmaker. Like I had plans with my friends. We were all gonna move to LA and I do it together, but like things didn't work out, and I ended up moving back home. In Central California, which is close to LA, but like I ended up moving back home. I ended up applying to the local news stations and trying to get my foot in the door, but it never really happened. I had tried and applied, but it never happened. And I started substitute teaching at the time, which was great actually. I cannot complain about sub teaching. I still do it now. I went back to it, which I will get into, but like it was a great job and I really enjoyed it and it gave me a lot of flexibility to focus on trying to get a job in the film industry and moving out of my hometown and moving to Los Angeles and living my big girl dreams. But unfortunately, that never happened. That never happened. I think I kind of lost hope and I stopped kind of looking. And at that time, I also was created a YouTube channel a long time ago. It was just a curly hair YouTube channel, and I used to make so much content, which I decided to remove because it was just so old and not really relatable. But I used to make a lot of content. That was like my hobby. I used to spend hours upon hours like filming and editing, and I feel like my audience was growing, but it wasn't growing fast enough. So again, that's something that like my confidence wasn't um as big as I would have wanted it at that time. And like, I was dealing with a lot of self-worth and self-love that, anything that didn't work out, I kind of gave up on. So yeah. So I was doing YouTube and then all of a sudden I had a horrible experience at one of the schools I was subbing at. It was a school where I had no support. I'm not gonna get into it, but it was just a terrible experience. And I was like, you know what? I can't do teaching no more. And I was already thinking about becoming a teacher, but then I was like, after that experience, I was like, I can't do this. So I quit subbing, and at that moment, I had started a reselling business while I was subbing as well. So I was doing YouTube, I was reselling, and I was subbing. And I started a resale business that I fell in love with. And what I did was I used to flip vintage clothes and like high end clothing. So I used to go into thrift stores and like swap meets and like find these cool like vintage fashion pieces that I used to resell on Poshmark, Depop, and Mercari. So that was my reselling journey. I did it for about like 2.5 to 3 years. After having that incident, I decided to go full time on my reselling business. I was so motivated, so confident that I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. This is the biggest risk I'm taking in my life. So I went through it. I decided to do it. I made enough to pay my bills and I had really good flips. Like I remember finding this like vintage Janet Jackson crew neck sweater from like 1993. I bought it for like $1.50 and I flipped it for like $200. I think it was 150, 150 actually. And I was like, oh my goodness, so I used to have those like little like great flips, but then COVID happened and it just distorted everything. I couldn't go through to the thrift stores. I couldn't like source anything, and I had to start sourcing online. So I used to buy wholesale from vintage websites and like wholesale from like Nordstrom and stuff like that. And it helped me for a bit, but then I was like, I can't do this anymore. I low key always kind of wanted to be a fashion designer, and like this reselling shop that I had allowed me to like, I used to like upcycle some things, but it was just that little like it was like dipping my feet into like the fashion world. But COVID happened and like my business took a hit. So I was like, okay, Leslie, it's time to get a job now. So I got a job at the library and I was also a library assistant and I really enjoyed it for that time I was there. But again, it wasn't enough. So I was like, okay, Leslie, we got to do something. And then at that time, my dad had gotten surgery too. So I was like, okay, we really need something so we could help our family out. So like I saw this ad where like they were like hiring like there was this big need for substitute teachers and now like they were paying okay money. So I was like, I've done it before and let me just try it again. I know I had that bad experience, but I was like, let me just try it again. So um yeah, I decided to go back to substitute teaching. This time I'm not gonna lie, I love it. I love it because I found the right schools, the right teachers, the right students. So substitute teaching I have really loved, and it actually has helped me to grow a passion and love for education. Where that's kind of like where I'm at right now, and I will get to it in a bit. So yeah, that's kind of like a little bit about what like my career has looked like and all of that. And I'm not done yet though. When I started subbing, I was like at the moment of COVID, I was like really thinking about what to do with my life. I was like, Leslie, like we have to like think about going back to school or getting something else. And I was like, where can I utilize my anthropological like skill set? And I came across UX design. And what I really wanted to do was UX research. So I decided to start a UX boot camp. Of course, it costs some money. It costs some of my savings. But I decided to do a UX design boot camp, and it was great. And after I finished my boot camp, I had like one project under my boat, and then I decided to join the boot camp I was doing. Also had this career program where you would get contracts and like work on different projects. So that's what when I started subbing, that's what I decided to do. Like I was subbing and also working on my design projects, which were a lot. It was a lot. Like I was working. It was kind of like a full time job because there was a lot of research, a lot of things that go through product design. So while I was subbing, I was doing my UX design research projects, and yeah, everything was great. So when I was done with my projects, my portfolio was ready to go. I started applying to UX design jobs, and at first it was great. This was 2022, summer of 2022, when like I was doing great. I was applying to UX jobs. I was subbing. I was doing great. And, you know, one thing that was missing, and this is one thing that makes me a super late bloomer, is that at 28 and a half, I had never dated before in my lifetime. I hadn't even held someone's hands. Let me just put it that way. Like, I had never had any experience with romance at all. And I was in a very desperate state at that moment in my life. I was like, I want to experience it now. I want to have a boyfriend. I want to have my UX career. I want to have a boyfriend. And I was like, mentally speaking, I wasn't at the right mindset. I wasn't. And I feel like this is some advice. Don't ever put yourself in a situation like that where there's two things that you need to get at once. Like a career, super important. Finding love, super important. Those are like the big markers in your life, and you have to be slow and steady with those things. So I started dating while also simultaneously looking for a job in UX design. And I was like, those were the that was the worst thing I could have done. But anyways, I started dating and I started using apps. And I think I need to make a video about this separately. But yeah, started dating and la. And then I met someone that I really liked, and I got in a relationship with them, and that didn't work, and it hurt me to my core. And that is what got me to my other chapter of my life, which was a very dark stage in my life, but I needed that in order to grow and know my love, like find self love and find self worth. So yeah, after my breakup, I was like very heartbroken. I was super depressed. I was sad. I was like, I don't know how I got through it, but fitness was always there to get me through. And that's the moment where I started creating content on TikTok and Instagram, kind of, but I started creating a lot of content on TikTok, and a lot of my videos blew up, and I started creating a community on TikTok. So those two things really kept
It's
me
gonna
good.
happen
But
when you
anyway,
least expect
in
it.
terms of UX
I think
research,
a lot of us
I
have
had gotten a job. I got a job offer in UX design, like while I was dating that person. And unfortunately, I was like, it was in San Francisco and it wasn't enough to pay my bills. So I decided not to take it. And then that was the only job offer that I ended up getting. So after I broke up, I was like defeated. I still kept applying to job, and then 2023 came by, and then tech took a big hit. Tech took a big hit, and they started firing people with like 7 to 10 years experience. So I was like, what is my chance that I'm going to get a job in UX design if they're firing all of these people? So I kind of gave up on it. Um, Being 29, my last year in my 20s, and going through a heartbreak, not being able to apply to the career that I wanted, I gave up on that as well. And I was still subbing, but like that's when like my passion for education really grew. I feel like if it wasn't for the schools, if it wasn't for the beautiful, awesome teachers, if it wasn't for the amazing students during this time in my life, I think I wouldn't have gotten through it as good as I did. Because I think what's important in life, and I feel like sometimes we want these big old careers, but I think the most important thing is to find a place that appreciates you, makes you feel seen, and that like really you feel human, you feel seen, you feel loved. And I feel like substitute teaching allowed me to feel that way during that time. There was this beautiful school that I always go to, still go to, that made me feel really welcome and seen and appreciated. And that is what I needed at that time in my life. So I was like, you know what? I do enjoy teaching. I do
Okay.
enjoy. So yes, so I went over like my vision, my college time, my career, and where I'm at, and my failure in love, and where I'm at now. At 30, I feel career wise, I love education. I want to get back. I think about it and like take the next steps into becoming, a permanent teacher. I am subbing is pretty permanent, but I would like to have my own classroom. Um, so that's where I'm at in career wise. But I would also love to delve back into anthropology. I feel like I've let this like super passionate part about loving humankind so much like kind of down the last years, and now I'm like I really want to focus on that and incorporate that into YouTube, incorporate that into TikTok and Instagram, and that's what I want to do as well. I love being a content creator. I love being a digital storyteller. I love stories, and I believe that's why I love film so much is because of the aspect of storytelling. Storytelling is so crucial, and it's a way that we just really connect with each other and are able to build communities based on that. So that is another stage that I would really love to focus on. I do want to be uh, a creator. I am a creator now, but I want to take it to the next level, and I want to go back to YouTube. I want to come back to YouTube. I feel like one of my biggest dreams since I was like 18 was to become a YouTuber, and I did it for a bit, but I didn't make it. I failed, but I'm here again with a different voice and a different perspective that hopefully resonates with a lot of you. In terms of love, like this is what I've learned. Like you cannot find love if you do not love yourself and if you don't know your worth. So as late bloomers, you really have to understand that you really have to love yourself, not talk bad about yourself, not disrespect yourself. Because imagine if you're disrespecting yourself, you're going to let other people walk all over you. So you have to know your worth. You have to love yourself and you have to respect yourself to find love. So those are the three pillars that I recommend people to work on before even starting to try to find love. And actually, going on apps is a no-no. Being so desperate to find somebody, it's a no-no. Like just live your life, live your purpose. Obviously meet people, connect with people, and it has to happen along those lines. You know what I mean? So that's my perspective on love now. All right, so now you know a little bit about me, my backstory, where I want to go in the future. All of the young late bloomers, and to all of the young folks in their 20s out there. Oh, tip number one: don't worry too much about a timeline. Like I feel like as a society we worry so much, like at 22 I need to graduate, at 25 I need to be married, at 28 I need to have 3 kids, at 30 I need to be a millionaire. And like these timelines are just an imagination. It's not realistic at some point. Like it's not really realistic. It wasn't for me. Especially if you're a late bloomer, don't go based on those timelines. Those timelines are just there to like really put you down. So just have in mind that you have your own timeline. Be patient with yourself. Okay, tip number two: do not compare yourself. Please do not compare yourself. You have to understand that we're all different. We're all in different paths. We all have our different purpose. People might get things younger at life. Some people get huge things later in life. You got to just focus on yourself and don't compare yourself. Be grateful for where you're at and be grateful for what you have. And do not compare yourself because that robs you of your happiness and it robs you of your ability to do better and become better. So appreciate appreciate and be grateful for what you have, and control your thoughts because your thoughts can either break you or they can either make you. So control your thoughts and control your emotions. Tip number 3: don't overthink it, because overthinking is just not going to help you with nothing. Just take action. If you fail, and that's okay. You experience it and you learn and you can apply it to your next experience. So don't overthink. I was a super overthinker, and I'm still working through it, and it never helps me, and I'm really trying to take action and like just do in order to get me where I want to go. So don't overthink because it just wastes times and it creates all these negative emotions that are really not necessary. Just take action, fail if you must, but you learn and you keep going. Tip number 4, which I already kind of went over it: love yourself, know your worth, and respect yourself always. If something does not making you feel valued, bye bye. If you are in a place that you don't feel appreciated and you're disrespected constantly, bye bye. If you're trying to find love, if these people don't respect you or make your life better than what it is, bye bye. It's better to be alone than in bad company. Tip number 5, utilize the digital space to find like minded folks and community or be part of a community. I feel like sometimes social media gets bad reps, but you could actually use social media to follow people who actually make a difference in your life, connect with people who think like you. And if you feel lonely, always try to find a space where you feel welcome, whether it's on social media, whether it's on Discord, whether it's a Reddit, whether it's like Facebook. It's a chance to really find yourself and connect with people that think like you and are like you, because sometimes it's hard in your local sphere. It's locally, it's sometimes it's hard to find people that think like you, but I know that online we all have a place where we belong. Tip number 6, just go out and live your life. Do it alone, because doing things alone, it's it's an act of self-love, and it helps you grow so much as a person, and it just makes you become this fearless person. Go out on dates by yourself, solo dates, join, I don't know, dancing class. But yeah, just go out and live your life, man. I hope this video shed some light into you guys. I know that being 30, I know for men and women it's difficult, but I feel like for women it's difficult in another level. And I feel like sometimes, because like not having kids and being single at this age can be very scary for a lot, but for me it's not. Um, my family has worked so hard for me. They immigrated to this country for me to become somebody. I have these dreams and I really want to live out my purpose. And if a man that's worthy of me comes into my life, then of course I would love to have kids and build a family, of course. But I don't want to be someone who stepped on, disrespected. And I don't want to bring kids into the world with somebody who doesn't respect me and love me how I deserve to be loved, if that makes any sense. So I much rather be alone, living my purpose and making a difference in this world. Yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please comment down below what your thoughts are, and always be respectful when commenting. Because remember, if you're spreading hate, if you're spreading criticism, it's not a reflection of myself or other people that are in my situation, but it's a reflection of yourself. So yeah. All right, guys, remember to be you, do you. God only made one of you. We need you. So stay true to yourself, and I'll see you guys in another one. Bye bye.